Welcome back, everybody, to Mind in America. It's part 2 with Mark Pelizza. And today we're talking about the need to change the boom-bust cycle of mining and how we achieve that, and community, how important it is to engage with community the right way. Let's talk about something a little attached to every type of mining, and that's the boom-bust cycle that we keep seeing. The amount of capital that's required to start a mine is huge. And I think that's a factor in the boom bust, which doesn't work well for communities. But I see in situ recovery as alleviating part of that boom bust cycle because of its economics and capital costs. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I think that the practical answer is that it will alleviate boom bust, because what in situ does is it allows deposits that may not be economic with conventional techniques to be economic. Yeah. So while it may not completely eliminate the bust, it allows lower grade deposits to continue to be mined and benefit the community. Whereas if it was a conventional mining operation with higher costs, that activity would just have to stop.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about community with you, because so your background in the industry is a lot of permitting, community engagement. You've worked with the EPA on developing ISR regs in Texas and Wyoming. Am I correct?
Yeah, my background from the beginning was health, safety, and environmental affairs. To this day, that is my focus. That involves working with the company on its permitting activities and safety plans and environmental policies, etc. It requires working with government agencies as part of the permitting process, but also during rulemaking and even the legislative process when it comes to lawmaking that ultimately results in rulemaking. And then finally, it requires a lot of work with the public in general, because the public is, it goes without saying that when uranium mining is proposed for a community, the community is going to take a lot of interest in that activity. The only way to effectively deal with the public is to listen to questions, have public meetings, respond, and give good answers to public's questions, and just be good stewards. So, and for many years in many geographic locations, one of what our company in the past has done is worked with local officials, local individuals, conduct public meetings, and address concerns. It's just part of the process that results ultimately in public acceptance and your ability to move forward with operations. Call it the social license, which is commonly referred to. And you know, if a local government agency or a local commissioner or a local judge or a local individual has a question or a criticism and it goes unanswered, then the default is that there is no answer and their criticism is valid. That doesn't serve the company at all. You know, what serves the company is to get accurate answers to the public. Public may not agree with the answer, but at least there's been a position stated.
Well, and the thing I like about your approach, and we share, is the goal is not to tell the community what to think. the goal is to give the community the information and allow them to make their own decision.
Right. Allow them to vet your answer and come to their decision. Again, they may not like the answer, but at least they've been given an answer that is very important for our side, for the company, for the spokesman for the companies, to assure that those answers are factually correct. And as I say, just the facts.
One of my frustrations is that, the lack of the mining industry in North America over, in my lifetime, watching it dwindle down has been very frustrating. And knowing that the environmental standards of Canada and US are extremely high. And that's where mining should be happening, instead of taking the necessary critical metals we need in our lives from underdeveloped countries with poor labor standards, with poor safety records, with poor environmental standards. It's my passion, dream, vision to allow these conversations to help people understand we really need it. Not only do we need it for many good reasons just stated, but also we need the jobs, we need the creation of wealth. Everything comes from mining.
Well, it's true. And our standards in the United States are as high as the standards anywhere in the world. If even, and we're talking about solution mining today, but even conventional mining, and specifically, let's say, talk about uranium conventional mining. Mm-hmm. In the past, a lot of conventional mining was done for military purposes. There were not a lot of regulations, and that legacy was left behind. There's no excuse for it, but it's the way that it was in the past, and that is what distractors from our industry use as examples. Mm. Well, in 1968, or maybe I should say it wasn't until 1968 that in the United States we had the National Environmental Policy Act and the EPA was formed. Since that happened, there have been scores of regulations at the federal level, and in many cases, states have become agreement states and chosen to implement federal regulations with additional standards on a state level themselves, to assure that some of the impacts that that occurred, and I'll just say before the modern era of environmental protection, mm-hmm. never again. And I think that in situ in general was an outgrowth of this realization of lower environmental impact operations. But again, even within situ, there was there has been volumes of regulations written for in situ to assure that even as low as the impacts are, that the impacts are even mitigated more, to allow for what I said earlier, the release of sites for unrestricted use for whatever they were used for before mining or in situ recovery, that they can be used for after in situ recovery. Back to the landowner, back to the federal government use. Whatever the land was used for before, it can be used for again after the operations are complete and restoration has been completed according to modern regulatory standards. Yeah.
I'm growing weary of but 30, 50 years ago you did this and we don't want it. And it's to the detriment of rural communities that need an economy. And you're not going to get an economy based on government jobs. And I think that the mining / extraction industry can help save rural America. True.
I'm pausing because I'm trying to think of ISO operations that don't occur in rural America, and I can think of none.
Yeah.
Whether it be South Texas, where it's wide open ranches
Yeah.
with small communities where, and I can think of one example in Brooks County, Texas, where the Alta Mesa project occurred. I wasn't directly associated with the project, but I was quite familiar with it. That was the largest employer in Brooks County. The largest private employer in Brooks County was and will be the Alta Mesa uranium deposit. Project. I can think of other operations, for example, in early on with Union Carbide's Palangana operation. That was the largest employer in North Duval County.
Yeah.
They did community projects like build senior centers and things that would have never happened
Yeah.
if it wasn't for the uranium recovery operations. But anywhere where you go, whether it's South Texas, which is a major district, whether it's western New Mexico, which is a major district, whether it is Wyoming,
Yeah.
these operations are all very important to the local community because they provide good, safe, high-paying jobs.
So yeah, I want to talk about that high paying jobs. Like when you're talking about a job that's paying what, 60 to $100,000 a year? Is that a fair statement?
That's fair.
Fall River County, Edgemont, Hot Springs. The median, and I may be off a little bit, but the median family income, $25,000, one of the poorest counties in the US, with an opportunity. And I completely respect people's demand to have full disclosure on environmental, but that's a lot of kids leaving the community that can have a high paying job and be home.
I can make the same statement, for example, with western New Mexico.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what the average salary or average wage is for people in New Mexico. It's probably similar to what you just said. Is if one travels across the Texas state line into New Mexico, you will see billboards urging economic development to keep the young people in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And I think it's what you just said is if you cannot produce an economic reason for a person to stay in their local community, they're forced to leave. And
I went to the school in Edgemont in South Dakota to find out, where do the kids go? Like what's the career path? How can a company like the one I'm involved with and you're involved with get involved? And they said most of them go into ranching or the military. Well, here's another opportunity.
mm-hmm.
I met a gentleman there. He's in his 80s and he had worked in the uranium industry when he was young. And it was that era that you spoke of, that was, has now become heavily regulated. And you would think that someone like that would be an opponent of it. And he wanted a uranium project so bad because he knew what it would do for his community and he knew what it would do for young people. And he was one of the strongest voices for why we need to have it. And I couldn't have said it any better myself than he said it.
I hear it over and over again. Another example is if Grants, New Mexico. Grants, New Mexico was a town that was built around the conventional uranium mining industry. That industry is gone. So now Grants prospects for employment are not that good. The state has built a prison there, so there's employment at the prison. But so many community leaders there, in conversations I'd have over the years, have said if there's a technology available that can come back and uplift the uranium industry, and make it competitive at current market prices, we welcome you. And I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, I lived in a mining town that was if it was in the middle of Canada's north. If you didn't have something to do, if you didn't have a reason to be there, you weren't there.
Right.
And it had 100% employment driven by the mine.
Right.
May not have worked at the mine. You may have worked at the grocery store. You may have worked at Sue's daycare. But everyone there that wanted a job worked, and it was all driven by private. And what a nice place to live.
Well, it's basic economics and essentially recirculating and money is that what taking a resource out of the ground and selling it produces the first tier of wealth. And then from there, the miners who are earning decent a living are able to go to a restaurant, and the employees go to the restaurant, and lunchtime around the mine. Well, that provides business opportunities for people that would want to open restaurants to provide those lunches. And I can think of gathering spots that were very crowded during lunchtime around mining activities. And without the mining activity there, they're out of business.
And you know what I liked about this particular company was they changed the shift work. So the shift work was more favorable to families.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of working 6 days in and then 2 days off and off you go again, they changed it to a schedule that allowed families to have extended time together between shifts. And it worked. It was a wonderful family town, and the social problems because of the full employment, the police loved it. It was a good place to live.
And I don't think it's limited to just mining. It's the small towns and the small factory towns all over the United States, where people were beneficially employed doing a lot of different things. And if the factory goes to China or is exported, in our cases, if the uranium business is exported to another country where maybe there's I didn't make a name, but to another country where the standards may be not as strict as the United States, the local people suffer. And in a lot of these communities that in South Texas and New Mexico and that are rural, there's just not a lot of infrastructure available for people to do other things. So it's rural, it's agricultural, it may be ranching, which will always exist. But then for other types of economic development that could occur, it's very, very limited.
So the message is buy local, mind in America. That's the podcast name, right?
That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Good for me, good for everybody. Thanks, Mark. I've enjoyed this chat today.
Well, anytime.
Well, we should do it again, because I want to go. I want to go to New Mexico with you and meet the communities there. Really want to do that.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. But thanks again. Appreciate your time. We'll chat again. I'm talking to your friend George Byers in a couple of days. He's going to tell me about 9/11. I'm going to let that story save for George. But you guys were together in Washington on that day.
And he's a very good friend indeed.
Yeah. You have a great week. And I hear Olivia barking, so I think our time is done.
Yeah, she wants me to take her for a walk.
Oh, good. We'll have fun.
Okay, be good. Bye.